Hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome to the party. I am feeling just a little spicy today. It fires me up a little bit when I hear women tell me, well, my husband said no. And what I mean by this is like I had a client come to me and she's like, okay, I really need a babysitter. I have found this place that will take the kids. It's free. And my husband said no. And I think that this is great. One, this is great because communication is open, right? And two, it also allows you, like as a mom, so let's just say you've needed something in your relationship and you have asked your husband and he's like, actually, no, I'm not open to that. Like, I'm not open to taking our kids to that place, right? Let's keep it for this example. And so when he says no, he is putting a boundary in place. And I think a lot of times as women, we don't realize that's what's actually happening. We're like, well, our husband said no. And so therefore, like, it is what it is. And this is not the case. This means that the communication line is open. And how do you want to solve this together? Because what I hear in this situation is a mom saying she needs support, saying that she needs help with the kids. The husband, he's not available because he works. And so she has said, I need help for my own sanity, for my own like personal well-being, so that I can get some of the things done that I want to get done. I need support. And it may not be in the way that she has found because her husband set a boundary. But the boundary that we get to set as women, and it took me such a long freaking time to recognize this in my own relationship, is we get to say, that is great. We do not have to take them there. What would you like me to do instead? Can I hire a sitter to come into our home? Can I take them to this other place? Like, what are you open to? And we now get to start discussing solutions, because the boundary that we get to set as a mom and a wife is, I need childcare, and that's it, period. So how can we make it happen? We find the solution. And I think that sometimes some of us are like, well, all right, he said no. Guess I can't find any other options. And I want to tell you, I know that you are way more powerful than that, first of all, and that you also get to have your needs met. So anytime our husbands say no to things, our partners say no to things, and draw a boundary, how can we still get that need met? And I know I've talked about this like in a previous episode about like yard work too, right? Or fixing a sprinkler system. If our husband's not going to do it, we give him a time period and are like, okay, well, if it's not going to be done in 2 weeks, if it's not done, I'm hiring somebody to come in and do it. Great. Now they can make their choice as to whether or not they're going to do it. And our need is met at getting it done. Because what happens, and this goes back to a lot of the way that we were designed biologically, past experiences, conditioning, like all of it, is when our partner tells us that they are going to do something and then they don't do it, we don't trust them. Like, it kind of puts a little ding in that trust that we have with our partner. And we don't want this to continue and then the resentment build. And so it's this, I don't want to use the word balance because I hate the word balance, but it almost is like this give and take, right? Like sometimes there are just seasons of life where we might need a little bit more, and there are seasons of life where they might need a little bit more. But how can you, as a woman, as the caretaker, as the nurturer in your home, you are the main energy in your home, for one. So how can you get your needs met so that you feel fully supported? And I just want to say, like, I never really thought that I would be where I'm at with my relationship right now, like, truly. And there are days where my husband, he's like, I know what I need and I don't necessarily know how to ask him. So sometimes I take it to my therapist and then we talk it out and I come up with the solutions. And then I come home and I'm like, here's what I need. Here's a boundary that I'm putting in place. And he's like, some days it really feels like you are on a warpath with boundaries. And other days, he's like, I feel like, oh, okay, I can see that. Like, yeah, that's great. This is not easy. It has taken my husband and I 17 years of marriage to get to this point. Now, I didn't start my own journey to self-care or personal growth and development, therapy, any of it until just recently. And so I have made massive changes in a very short period of time, but I also have been doing personal growth work for years, 10 plus years, at least 12 years, because I think I had Ella and then Jack came along, and Jack was when I finally drew the line in the sand and was like, I am completely done. This has to be different. Life gets to be different. But we got pregnant at the age of 18. We had our first baby when we were 19, and we were two very different people back then. Now, I also want to say, there's zero abuse in this home. He is not abusive emotionally or physically. And so if that is your case, that is a whole different topic, a whole different story. But if you have a relationship that you are comfortable in, not wanting to leave and wanting to figure out how to make it better, this is it. It's opening up the lines of communication. It is asking for your needs. And for me, as a person with a lot of trauma in my past, and I told my therapist, I'm like, sometimes I just feel like I say, I have a lot of trauma in my past, and I just keep saying that. And I think there was a part of me that felt like I was using it as an excuse for bad behavior. And she said, you are not using this as an excuse for bad behavior because you are taking the steps and making the changes and doing the work. And so don't ever feel like, if you're like, well, this is how I grew up. And I want you to look at that, and I want you to look at that statement, because there's a fact there, right? This is how you grew up. And the relationship that was modeled to you from your mom and dad is all you have to go on right now. And you get to choose to see things differently, to do things differently, to create a life that you desire, to create a relationship that feels really good within your home, to learn how to set powerful boundaries. And when we are doing the work, it's not an excuse. It's an acceptance. And that's a really cool place to be, is when we finally just look at it and accept how we were raised, what was modeled to us, that our parents were simply doing the best that they could with what they had. They didn't know any better. They didn't know how to teach us any better. And if they weren't doing personal development work, I don't feel like it was as big back then. I feel like therapy had a stigma around it back then, that the only reason you would go to therapy is if you had a problem, if something was wrong with you and whatever. And I feel like now everything is starting to shift in this realm where we have a lot more personal development work, and therapy is a way to support ourselves and to get the help that we need to make changes in the things that we want to shift in our lives. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. And I think that that's something that we need to look at in today's day and age. And this is where I have been able to make a lot of the shifts. I've been a breathwork facilitator, a certified breathwork facilitator since 2023. 2023? Yeah, it's been about a year now. I started in 2022 with the certification program through Pause Breathwork, and that has changed a lot for me. And so it's finding the things that really support you, for one, and then two, going back to this trauma piece. I do have a lot of trauma in my past. I have all kinds of big T trauma. And I have to look at that. And I am not using it as an excuse. I am using it as, this is where this came from. And now I am choosing something different. And a lot of times when we have trauma in our past like this, by the way we were raised, things that happened, whatever it was, we first have to bring ourselves. I think this was the part that pissed me off the most about myself, is that I first had to come to a place that I was okay with having needs. Because if we have a lot of trauma, a lot of neglect in our childhood, we gain this sense of a hyper independence. And so we can't rely on anybody else because they're not going to follow through for us. So it's me, and that's the only way that shit's going to get done. That's the only way my needs are going to get met, is if I do it myself, if I do it for myself. And as we know, this doesn't always play out in a relationship really well either, especially if our partner truly wants to help and support us. And so I want you to look at that, and I want you to really understand that we have these parts of us within us. If you've ever done parts work, you'll know what I'm talking about. But how my therapist explained it to me is picture my body as a big pond. So picture your body as a big pond. And in this pond, there are all these different fish. Some of them are like the manager fish, like, oh, we shouldn't do it that way. It needs to be done this way. You shouldn't do that. Like, you're going to fail. And then we have like these scared little parts of us. It's like, nope, don't do that. Don't do that. We can't do that. What is your mom going to think? What is your sister going to think? What is your friend going to think? And we just have all these different parts. I call them little gangsters, like little versions of us who were wounded in childhood. And now we have become the parent of all these little gangsters within us. And we get to tell these parts of us, you know what? It's okay. I am choosing how I live my life now, and I am safe to put a boundary in place. And it took me a really long time. I shouldn't say a really long time, like 6 months to get to this place. And I am like a queen at setting boundaries. And so I just want to let you know, like, you get to have needs. You get to have your needs met. And if your partner is putting a boundary in place as to what that will look like, then you now get to sit down together with him and you get to say, okay, then what does this look like for us? I need childcare. Can we start with 4 hours a week? 2 hours, 2 days a week? 5 hours, 2 days a week? 5 hours a week? Like whatever you want it to look like for you. And babe, how can we make this happen? How can we make this happen? Because yes, he can put the boundary in place, and so can you. I need childcare. How can we get it? Okay, I can't go here. Then you tell me, where can I take the kids? Who can I hire to watch the kids? You do not have to submit. You do not have to abandon yourself and say like, okay, babe, that's fine. Like, you know what? I won't take them there. I'll figure it out later. No, this is a conversation between the two of you. You brought these children into the world. You get to figure out how to take care of them together in a way that feels good to both of you. And if he's going to put a boundary in place or your partner's going to put a boundary in place, then you also get to put a boundary in place. And this does not, just know, any abusive situation, this does not apply. Like any abusive situation, figure out what you need to do to get out. But in a healthy relationship, or I don't even know if I would call my relationship with my husband like super healthy for a long time. We were figuring it out. And there's nothing wrong with that either. We were figuring it out along the way. And now, as we've gotten to where we are now, he's actually really receptive to the needs that I have, to the things that I want. And I want you to also recognize that they're going to have big feelings at the beginning of this, just like my husband did. Like he had really big feelings at the beginning when I started putting boundaries in place around things. And he's like, well, you've never had, like, what is this? He's like, I've never had boundaries for you. And the reason that he, and maybe this is your situation too, the reason he has never had boundaries for me and never needed to set boundaries for me was because I was the people pleaser. I would abandon myself, I would throw myself under the bus and take care of him, make sure he was happy, make sure all of his needs were met. This is where resentment starts to creep in. And he never asked me to do these things. I also want to say that because I think a lot of times this is something that we're taught. This is something that I feel like is taught in a lot of high demand religions, is that it is our duty as a mother, as a woman, to take care of the man in our life, to take care of the children. Like that is our job. And I just want to call BS on that right now. It is not your job to keep everyone else happy. It is your job to keep yourself happy, to cultivate the energy that you desire to have in your home, to raise happy, healthy, confident kids, and to have a relationship that you want modeled for your kids. So if you're looking at the relationship that you are in right now and you are recognizing where you have completely neglected yourself, where you've told yourself, well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I don't want that. Like he's happy, so that's great. Like I'll take care of everything else. He's providing financially for the family. It's my job as a woman and as a mom to take care of everything else. You got to call yourself out and be honest. Like that is bullshit. You both created the family. You both get to have needs and desires and boundaries and all of it. And so, how can you start to make this work? And I will again say, like, it really has taken me a long time in my own relationship to get here. And I know, had I started off probably not getting pregnant at 18, like we were babies having babies, but had I been more receptive and open to the idea of therapy, I had therapy through the religion I grew up in. They have a therapy side of, I don't know, the business, whatever. So they have LDS therapists. And that was such a poor fit for me because they were so biased. They did not see and were not willing to see or point out where religious trauma also played into this. And so in a lot of high demand religions, like we're the gatekeepers to sex, we're the gatekeepers to a lot of things for the man. That is what we are taught. And that is so damaging to relationships. And so now jumping into therapy about a year ago, like I really had to unpack not only my religious trauma, but my childhood trauma and everything else that happened and the beliefs that I picked up along the way. And so I want you to look at your life and recognize you've also picked up beliefs along the way that are now playing out in your relationships. And so as you start to learn that there can be a different way and being open to it and your partner being open to it, you really get to figure out how your puzzle pieces fit together a little bit differently. Me and my husband, I was a more wounded woman back then. I was a more wounded human being back then. And so our puzzle pieces fit together a certain way because he was fitting needs that I had at the time. I was fitting needs that he had at the time. But now, as we have evolved and changed, and my story is the resentment grew big. It grew really big. I realized how much I had sacrificed throughout our entire marriage to do things his way. And finally, that little part of me was like, I have had it. I am done. And now we're figuring out how our puzzle pieces fit together differently because I am a different person than I was back when I was 18. And he is a different person than he was back when he was 18. And so I just want you to recognize one, it does not have to take this long. It really doesn't. Like, I really wish that, I can't say I really wish, like, the journey the journey has been good, has been challenging, has been very trying, has been almost not worked out divorce situation, and we're figuring it out. And right now, the conversations we're able to have, the way that we support each other, I'm like, holy shit, this feels so good. Today, first day of like official summer, right? Like it's a new week, school just got out. He took the 3 kids and they went over the mountain and they're chasing bear. And my oldest daughter, she had to work today. She has to work from like morning till late afternoon. And so she left and I have a quiet house to myself. I feel really supported. I went on a walk in the sunshine. Last night, I went on a walk like right before bed, and it feels really good. He is supportive of my needs and desires. And when he's having big feelings, we're able to talk about it. And I never in a million years never in a million years thought that we would get to this point. He is very much a non-communicator. He is very much a stuff your emotions down. I feel like that's the generation that he and I were both raised in. Like, I'll give you a reason to cry, quit your damn bawling, whatever it is, right? And so being here now is mind-blowing to me. Honestly, I never thought I would see him open up. I never thought I would see him like show any emotion. It has been incredible. It has been hard. It has been fun. It has been trying at times. There has been a lot of tears, but I want to tell you, being on the other side of this is so, so worth it. So I just want you to know you do get to have boundaries. You do get to have open communication. You do get to have your needs met, and it is absolutely okay to have needs. And if you have any questions, you want to reach out to me, you want to have a conversation around it, please come find me on Instagram at Amanda Clark Coaching. I love talking about this stuff. This is why I created my course, Empowered Mom. For those of you who are not in there, doors are closed right now, but they will be opening again in a few months. And it is an incredible program all around how to cultivate the energy in your home, how to create the relationships you desire with yourself, with your kids, with your partner, how to lighten the mental load that we carry as moms and how to understand what is the mental load. If you're like, what is that? I do talk about that a lot on my Instagram too, but you can also go back to the first episode of this month and I talk a lot about lightening the mental load for summer. But you deserve to live a life you love with kids in tow, and you absolutely can make it happen. And I will talk to you next time.